Hi, I'm Marlow Artis. Thank you so much for visiting our blog, Tar Heel Teachers. Today I am joined by Rudy Tatum. He is a retired principal and he is running for one of the at-large seats for the Cumberland County Board of Education. How are you doing?
Doing fine, thank you.
Mr. Tatum, how is your campaign coming along? Please tell us about the progress of your campaign.
I think it's going quite well. Of course, you never can tell until November the 4th, until everything is over with, but I've had a lot of people that have expressed support, and I've had a lot of people thank me for running, so that makes you feel like you're doing the right thing.
What are some major milestones, some personal milestones and some career milestones that have led to you joining this campaign?
There are several things. I think one that I fall back on is when I was a teacher. I got a lot of satisfaction in helping students. I was a work-study teacher and I helped students get jobs and I got to see them develop on the job. Then I moved into different types of roles. I moved into a role where I was an assistant principal, an instructional specialist, and director of federal programs. But I think the things that had the greatest impact on me was when I had the opportunity to serve with a school team, a team of dedicated teachers. And we used a teacher empowerment model. And that's the first school that we used the model with earned the highest award in America. They actually moved from about 7th place in Cumberland County's schools, with elementary schools, to first place for 3 years. Then they got the National Blue Ribbon Award. So that was extremely satisfying, being able to work with the teacher team. I looked at my main priority on improving schools as an empowered, caring, and competent team. I thought that was the best practice to use in turning schools around. You know, we have hundreds of best practices, but the most important practice to me was an empowered, caring, and competent team. So I served at this school. It was Eastover Central School of Arts. We put in the arts program, had a wonderful time, very rewarding. And I retired. I had a part-time job working at an elementary school with the curriculum. And I was asked if I would apply for Pauline Jones. And Pauline Jones, I think they wanted an experienced principal that had a track record. Well, I applied for the job, then I was told that it was the lowest performing elementary school in the state of North Carolina. And it was quite a challenge, but we used some of the same concepts that we used at Eastover Central. An empowered, caring, and competent team turned that school around to get the highest award in America. That had a big impact on me. And I learned that you don't fix schools with kids. You know, if we could fix a school with a kid, all of our schools would be great. But to create great schools, the answer comes from within, the team within, the teachers, the community, the students, all of those people working together. When I was in Washington, earning or representing Pauline Jones to get the highest award, receive the highest award in America, I sat among the top schools in America. I sat with private schools, church schools, charter schools. And here I was representing Pauline Jones. Well, I know how I got there. It was an empowered, caring, and competent team that got us there. And that had a big impact on me. I remember one more incident that had a big impact on me and caused me to want to run for the Board of Education. And we would do training sessions for principals, training principals to be principals, assistant principals and students to be principals. And we would do this at Pauline Jones. And we would do it at Walker's Bobby when we relocated to Walker's Bobby. And I announced that I was going to retire. And a professor from Sand Hills Community College pulled me out in the hallway and said, "Rudy, you can't just go home. You've got to share what you've learned." And if you do a study on what we should be doing in our life, you know, from different sources, you'll find that man has a purpose in life, and we have talents that we need to share. And I thought, well, that's probably my talent. And I thought that I would try to use that talent to make Cumberland County a world-class school system. So I'd like to have the opportunity to do that.
Great. So you were in the system for a total of 37 and a half years.
37 and a half.
Wow. So now, how are you going to bring all that experience to the school board? How is all of that, working with all these various teams and turning things around in these schools, How are you going to bring that to the Board of Education?
Well, the board members have certain roles that they have, and one of them is to hire a superintendent. Another one is to develop policies. And I think a role to develop policies for teaching and learning could be important. I have 3 goals, and my goals are to keep our schools safe, to challenge all children. And I'm talking about the most intelligent children to the children that have the greatest learning barriers. I think all of our children must be challenged, and I've learned that. I've learned that children that we thought could not perform at high levels did perform at very high levels when given the right conditions. I also felt like we need to let teachers teach. And these were some things that I felt like I'd like to focus on if on the board. And I can do things where we can look at different types of requirements that we're making of teachers and maybe eliminate some of those requirements if it is not mandated by the federal or state government. If it's something that we are imposing here in Cumberland County, it may be that we would take a look at, is that really important in taking time from teachers that could be spent on developing lesson
And I think
plans?
that is a legitimate concern, because a lot of teachers talk about some of the overwhelming administrative things that we have to do, and it does deter for some people staying in the system as a classroom teacher. So I think you do have a point.
Thank you.
Okay. And what was the other point? The other item: let teachers teach, safe and caring schools, and then challenge
All
administrators.
children.
Wonderful.
And challenging all children. When you have an empowered, caring, and competent team that's highly motivated in a school, and they're working hard, they're going to make a great school, in my opinion. That's how you create great schools. There's been some research that have influenced me, and one of the articles I can remember reading by Duke University and UNC, it talked about incentives versus sanctions. And it said sanctions have only taken us but so far. We can only go so far from external punitive types of controls. You don't do this, so we're going to do that to you, or do it this way or the highway, or this is a scripted approach that we want to take. It can only take a school but so high, average schools. But if you want to have a great school, the answer comes from within. And it comes from an empowered, caring, and competent team. I think the challenge is not creating great schools, but the challenge is sustaining great schools. And that's one of my concerns. Once we have schools that have shown us that they can perform at high levels, what are we doing to sustain those schools? And what are we doing to use the things that they did to get them there to a high performing level in other schools? That seems to be a key to having a great school system.
Great. Now, going back with teachers, so one of the ways is that we're going to maybe cut back on some of these administrative things so that teachers can teach, let teachers teach. What is another way that we can keep our teachers here in Cumberland County? What's something we can do locally?
Well, Marlow, we don't hear much about teacher working conditions. But once you study teacher working conditions, you'll see that there's a correlation many times between teacher working conditions and student learning conditions. There are schools in Cumberland County when the teachers answer a question that asks them how they feel they're being treated as a professional. There may be 30% of the teachers in that school that says, I am being treated as a professional. My opinion is valued. Then you see another school that may have 95% or 100%. These are things that cause people to want to come to great organizations. IBM, Apple, a lot of our great organizations have cultures that draw the best and the brightest. We know that teachers are not in it for the money. They're in it because they're professionals and they want to make a difference in the lives of children. But just like me and just like you, we like to work in places where our opinions are valued, where we are listened to, where we're respected, where we are empowered to make a difference in the lives of children. And I think a lot of times what happens is teachers feel as though they're not valued. Now, it is true that teachers need money. And the morale, I think, has been influenced by some of the ways we have compensated our teachers, just like the new salary range that we're giving them, where the teachers that have the greatest experience a lot of times are not compensated like the younger teachers. But there are a lot of different things we can do besides money. And I always felt like a culture of a school, and that's the way it feels when you walk into a building, where people are focused on what they're doing, they work as a team, they're pleased with the way things are run. And most of the time they're pleased with the way things are run at the school because they're a part of making the decisions on how things are run there. So I think that's big as far as recruiting and retaining high caliber teachers in the school.
Speaking of recruitment, the numbers for the enrollment for Cumberland County has gone down. We were like over 52,000, now we're about 51,000. Why do you think all of our kids, or some of the kids, have migrated to other schools, and what can we do to solve that issue?
You know, you have to sit down and look at the data. The data that I have looked at seems to be subjective as far as is presented from this side and that side, and depends on who you ask, but I'd have to look at all the data. There's movement in a military town. There are all different types of reasons. A lot of times it depends on who you ask as far as the question you get, but the way I like to answer questions like that would be to do a thorough study of the data to find out where the children are going, why they're going, do some surveys and find out.
Because, I mean, it's federal dollars are at stake too. I mean, the school system ends up losing money with losing students, so that is something we'll have to investigate, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So there are all different types of reasons. Like I said, it depends on whom you ask, and it may be things of academics, it may be a thing of someone sees a school that they think would challenge their children more. It may be I have an opportunity to work with children in my family at home, and I like to spend quality time with them, and many of those are positive reasons too. So I do believe that parents should have a choice. Sometimes the population is just, maybe our population in the county has declined. So it could be a simple thing of that. But well, I don't know the answer until I would have to look at it thoroughly and to answer that question.
Okay. If you had to assess the current school board and give them a letter grade, what letter grade would you give them, and why?
I would give them a B. And I would say we are staying at the state average. The way I look at how we're doing in Cumberland County schools, you know, there's hundreds of ways of measuring student achievement, as you know, being a professional. Hundreds of ways. One of the simple ways I use to find out how Cumberland County schools is achieving or progressing is to compare the average of all of our student achievement scores, and it's just academic achievement. There are other things that you can look at too, graduation rates, the cultures of school, the success of children, the way they feel, the way students feel. But if we're looking at the achievement of our children, I like to look at the average of academic achievement as compared to the average academic achievement of all the children in North Carolina. How do we rank? And we're at the average. And that's not too bad. You know, that's pretty good to stay around the average. Sometimes we're a little bit above the average, sometimes we're a little bit below the average, but we're going back and forth in the last few years from what I can tell. I believe we can be well above average. And I believe if we have an empowered, caring, competent team, that we can be a great school system. And I believe that our central office and our board members are working at being a great school system, and they're working in a very hard way and a very intentional, assertive way towards that goal. But you know, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to run for the board, because I think I have learned some things about how to create great schools, and I'd like to have the opportunity to try those things.
Are there any major initiatives that you would like to see implemented immediately? I know you've got the goals, but any major initiatives that you think will be able to bring your goals to life?
I would like to see an organized approach to raising the capacity of leadership within our school teams in our schools. In other words, we are intentionally trying to actively engage our school teams in improving our schools. And I know we're doing that, but I'd like to see us do a better job of that. You know, we talk about active engagement with our students.
Right.
And how we are helping them to develop critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills. I'd like to see us do a little bit more of that with our teachers and our parents and our teams within our school. Let's actively engage them in some of the processes of school improvement, not in an infantile way, but in a real way, in a way where they know they're making a difference in their school. And I believe that will improve our cultures as well as the results within our schools.
Great. What are 3 major reasons why you should occupy one of those 3 seats?
Well, I really believe a track record, man, it makes a difference when you're serving on the board. And I think we need to have people who have shown that they can provide high-level results in education. In other words, I believe people who know how to have results within schools that are at high levels are important to our school system. If you want to have a high-performing school system, I think it's important to have people who understand how to get high-performing schools, because that's what makes up the school system. So if you have someone who knows how to get high-performing schools, it stands to reason that maybe they could help the entire Cumberland County schools. So I believe that experience does make a difference. When you look at hiring people for high-performing organizations, I know we need to hire young people who have great potential. But when you have an established organization, I believe, just like you would hire anybody for a job, you would look at experience and results. What kind of results has this person given you? And I think I've been blessed with knowing how to get results. And my blessing was, all I had to do was listen to high-caliber teachers. And that is what turned the schools around, along with the supporters in the community and the parents and the students. And a lot of times I don't believe a lot of folks place a lot of value, I hate to say a lot too much, in what students think. And some of the best ideas I got as a principal was from students. So it takes a multifaceted team, but I think that would probably be one of my talents that I have learned, how to bring people together and listen to people and use what they have shared to improve the education of the children in our county.
And the last reason?
I think I have an ability to work with different groups in the community, to serve with different types of leaders. And I have learned that that is very important. So I would say cooperation is extremely important with different people in our community, and not to deny someone who is not a leader, because some of your best ideas come from people who are not leaders. But listening and cooperating, I think, would be another one.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Tatum, for joining me. I wish you well, and we'll find out all the results November 4th.
Well, thank you for taking the time to interview me. I appreciate what you're doing for our school system.
Thank you.